The weird phase of 2016 was filled with a colossal cavalcade of copious cringe. It came with many awful SJW-induced trends that came along into mainstream media, and guess what? These trends did not make the media in question better, but instead made them too jarring in order to be entertaining. Diversity hiring is definitely one of those trends. It's a supposed act of inclusivity that, when you boil it down, is the most superficial act of trying to make your company and projects look more diverse, quote-unquote. Movies like Ghostbusters 2016, TV shows like High Guardian Spice, and comic books like, damn near anything in the DCYA catalog are all victim to this act. And since those are all awful pieces of work that I just mentioned, you can pretty easily tell that this trend is pretty much poison to all and any form of media in existence. Diversity hiring is the act of, it's pretty straightforward. Employing someone into your workforce, not because they are qualified, adequate, and a proper fit for the position, but instead because of their marginalized identity. Essentially, the way you hire people is the same way you value and throw away items in a World of Warcraft dungeon run. The more rare something is in terms of its inclusive identity, the more you find it employable, and anything else is tossed out like yesterday's garbage, including the people who are actually competent and fit for the job. And boys, right off the bat, there is already so much to unpack from hearing that definition alone. First of all, why? Is adding in random people who more than likely have no experience or skill with the subject matter of what they're doing going to help? Second of all, isn't this action more than likely going to make the creation of something harder, or, even worse, because competent individuals who can actually assist with something aren't getting hired, and instead just a bunch of randos who have no place in their employment role are being brought in simply because they're marginalized? And third of all, I'm sorry, I need to bring this up again. Is this going to improve the quality of the production? Is hiring a transgender lesbian going to improve the cinematography of a testosterone-fueled action movie? The answer is no, and the reason why is because these types of individuals are not properly fit to work in these roles. I'm making the assumption that the thought process for doing all this is, hey, anyone can fit anywhere, and if you don't agree with that, that just means you're an evil, racist, transphobic bastard. Yeah. And it's like, no, that's not how it works. Some people just are not fit to be doing certain jobs. I mean, me, for example, I'm a black guy, right? Well, back when I was in New York City, I tried to apply for work at a fried chicken joint, and that fast food joint was filled with all Spanish-speaking Mexicans, the customers, the workers, everybody. So naturally, they did not hire me. But the reason why they didn't hire me wasn't just because, all of those Mexican people there were just racist bigots. Like, nah, the reason why was because, yo solamente habla inglés. I don't know their language, so why the hell would I be in there? Certain types of people are just not fit to be performing certain tasks and jobs, boys, regardless of their marginalization. That's how it is. You wouldn't draft a fucking paraplegic to play for the New York Giants, would you? You wouldn't hire a butch bodybuilder Jersey douchebag to write a frickin' Sex and the City movie. You wouldn't hire Ron DeSantis to write a black slavery documentary. And lastly, and more to the point, trying to shoehorn in some black dudes and lesbians into your workforce is clearly an attempt at inclusivity, but it's not very inclusive towards the people who are actually qualified to earn those jobs based off of their own skill and experience. Imagine being in college for 4 years straight only to find out your chance to pick up a job at Universal Studios was robbed from you because some fat, pink-haired feminist who has no knowledge or skill into the subject matter got the job simply because of her one-dimensional identity. This BS tries to be diverse, but in reality it's stealing jobs from people who actually struggle to be the best in their craft. And so, this is an inclusivity bias. But hey boys, regardless of my many argumentative points and questions I have from the simple idea of hiring someone based off of their identity and nothing else, companies and studios regardless have been doing this stuff for years. The logic behind diversity hiring, the mindset behind all of this, is that it's a bad thing to hire people because they're qualified for their job, and it's a good thing to hire people based off of how rare they are in their own industry. If you hire more marginalized people, your studio has less bigotry and racism, and if you hire only marginalized people, your studio has zero racism and bigotry in it. And that's a totally good method of hiring people and thusly improving the quality of the project that said studio is working on. Right, guys? Right? Oh wait, what's that? The concept of diversity hiring has spawned some of the biggest disasters and clowned-on pieces of media on the planet. High Guardian Spice was made by a studio with 95% marginalized quote-unquote people, and then the show turned out to be the most hated, laughed-at thing for the longest amount of time until Velma appeared. And before that, Ghostbusters 2016 was being universally dunked on, not because of its all-female cast, but instead because the movie was just bad? Oh. But hey, that's all perfectly fine, because, boys, you want to know something funny? It doesn't actually matter whether or not these diversity-polluted things were good or bad. What actually matters is this. You see, those things that I mentioned earlier, High Guardian Spice, Velma, I Am Not Starfire, yada yada, all of those things have one important element in common. And that is the element of victimhood. Regardless of how bad these pieces of crap were, they are still being defended to this very solitary day by a small group of people because of their diverse cast and production team. These individuals are automatically perceived as the victim of racists and sexists and neo-Nazis if their piece of media turns out to be a piece of trash. Furthermore, if a piece of media hides behind the diversity shield, then essentially all the creators can just leave the project scot-free, wiping their hands clean of the terrible project without having it ruin their own reputation in the media industry they work in, since they can just say that the evil bigots weren't ready for their work. Oh yeah, bro, I worked on High Guardian Spice, the biggest joke of 2021, but the reason why everyone says it's bad isn't actually because it's bad, they just all hate women. Anyway, will you hire me? I promise I don't suck at my job. And that is essentially the entire reason diversity hiring exists in a nutshell. A surface-level veil of pretend inclusivity maliciously designed to make a company look superficially open-minded and hip, and also sweep a potential failure of media under the rug. Boys, this was a very common thing that occurred about half a decade ago, but as of now, it's the year 2023 as of the time of this recording. Are we even still doing this diversity hire bullshit? The answer is no. Mostly no, anyway. Most major media studios have learned their lesson not to do this, but there's still a few morons desperately trying to cling on to the nonsense. Disney is unfortunately, but also unsurprisingly, still one of them. And thus, we dip our toes into the Snow White situation. Disney as a company, for the longest amount of time, have pretty much had their souls sucked out of their lifeless husk and replaced it with a bank vault of billions of dollars. If there is any opportunity to do some revolting underhanded shit in order to save face and squeeze dough out of their shit-stained products, they will happily do it. So it probably won't surprise you to find out that Snow White, a movie that originally was a groundbreaking animated feature that put Disney on the map in the first place way back in the early 1900s, has been revamped and rebooted to be a soulless, ugly, revolting, lore-inaccurate mess, completely torn apart and haphazardly repieced together for the sake of appealing to the modern audience. I don't know how to do the filter thing. And look, usually this is the part where I get angry and get upset about how brazenly disrespectful this company is, but honestly, not this time. Because I believe mostly everyone is on the same page here and is able to see through the diversity bullshit in this situation. And it's all thanks to the main actress for Snow White. This is Rachel Ziegler. And guess what? She is a You see, boys, when actors for live-action Disney remakes discuss the productions that they are working in, they usually show the utmost respect to the original property, attempting to make the impression that the remake that they're trying to work for is a simple adaptation that isn't trying to erase the history of the original, but instead attempting to respectfully elevate and revitalize the OG work. So, what does this girl do?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Yeah. Weird. I was scared of the original cartoon. I think I watched it once and then I never picked it up again. Like, I'm being so serious. I watched it once and then I went on the ride in Disney World, which was called Snow White's Scary Adventures. So we didn't do that this time.
Yep, that's right, boys. She has absolutely no respect or any to give about the original thing. And what's even worse is the fact that she is brazenly and proudly displaying no respect for it too, trivializing the importance of this movie to Disney's history as a company. Boys, look, I've seen the way this girl acts far before any of the Snow White drama, and I'm telling you this right now, I don't believe that Rachel Zegler is an actual human being. Because this girl, the way she acts, like, oh, okay, listen. Okay, you know, like in the high school teen movies and cartoons and shit, you know that one stuck-up, bitchy, alpha female popular girl who's got like the posse of girls hanging around her and stuff? Okay, imagine that girl, but she's a real-life person. That's Rachel Zegler in a nutshell. Say what you want about how terrible all of these Disney remakes are, but at the very least, the people behind them actually do care about the original work. Or at the very least, try to make it look that way. This stuck-up asshole is making the soullessness of Disney's cash grab remakes beyond obvious. And that's what I'm talking about. This weird SJW pandering nonsense that mainstream media constantly performed in the past, it's beyond played out. All of that garbage was just one big awful fad. And you see this? The fact that almost everyone is up in arms about the pointless BS in this one just shows off the fact that the trick is getting stale, and the diversity hiring in this situation is something that anybody, and damn near everybody, can see right through like pantyhose. The reason why diversity hiring was such a successful shield of criticism in the past, what with Ghostbusters 2016, is because everyone looked at the creators and actors of that production as the victim. The victim that was being shunned and cast away by a bunch of evil, racist, sexist a-holes who were the presumed American and international viewing public, right? But in this situation right here, can you really say that this spoiled, bratty bitch is a victim in any way, shape, or form? Making nasty-ass comments about how she hates the original movie and talking down to the original creators of the animated production? In this situation here, can you really say that Disney is the victim, intentionally choosing to cast a brown-skinned girl as Snow White when literally the whole reason why she's called Snow White is because her skin is white as snow? And then you make the dwarves not dwarves because basically no reason? Like I said, usually I'm really annoyed by the end of my rants on these subject matters, but honestly, I'm pretty calm in the situation. And honestly, I'm kind of happy, because I genuinely do feel that we, as a people, have reached the tail end of this weird woke fad that American media has been plagued with for the past 7 years. And that's something that relieves the irritation of this situation easily. Regardless of that fact, though, there are still remnants of pointless pandering lurking about, Disney's awful remakes being one of them. And after everything I've said, it's beyond clear that the Snow White reboot's existence and the concept of diversity hiring as a whole is a perfect example of inclusivity bias. That's all there is to it, boys. We'll see you next time. Let's get to the Patreon roll call. My $10 supporters are Cami Bees, Jack G, Make Haji, Joseph Vincent, Procrastinator Dave, Skyer, Syndrin7, and Stormy Knight. And of course, we have our $5 supporters. They are appreciated just as much as our $10 Patreons. If you'd like to be in the credits of my videos as well, just catch me on patreon.com/blacklightjack. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next time.